From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, I'm Rob Cairns. I'm the founder, CEO, and Chief Digital Strategist at Stunning Digital Marketing. Today, we're talking all about security, and that means it's time for Mr. Tim Nash. And Tim and I are going to talk about two things today. One is cell phone bills and access to your data. And the second thing is Tim's new security course. Sit back, relax, enjoy. The SDM Show is brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, the digital marketing concierge that helps you put all your marketing pieces together. We are your marketing experts. We are also your WordPress security experts and know how to lock down a website and protect yourself from bad actors. So contact us at Stunning Digital Marketing today. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here, and today I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Tim Nash. Hey Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. It's incredibly bright in here, so I can barely see you, and I'm hoping that I'm not being bleached out by the sun.
No, you're not being bleached out, and I don't know about the UK, but Toronto has been kind of hot lately. Today is 30 degrees with the humidex, and it's just warm out there again. So,
it's definitely warm in here. I've had to close all, to get a very rarely reasonable sound quality. I need to close the windows and the doors. So we're on a timer because the heat in here will get to a point where I have to go, no, we're opening everything up. And there is a cow outside, and it is sat maybe 10 meters away from me, and it will just start mooing at us loudly.
Yeah, so I thought today we'd talk about a couple of things. Privacy is kind of at the top of my mind. So privacy and security go hand in hand, as you know. It's interesting. I was saying to you, so what started this thought process is in Canada, the government's trying to pass a bill called Bill C2. And what that will do is give the police access to cell phone data without needing a search warrant. So I have a bit of an issue like that. Some people would argue the EU is too strict with their privacy. I would argue probably not. Even as a marketer, I would argue not. It makes it hard to do my job, but from a consumer perspective, it's probably better. What do you think about giving police uninhibited access to data without checks and balances?
I mean, I think as you said it, you could probably already tell what the answer is going to be. And I think most police probably would, if you ask them, would you like Joe to be able to see everything on your phone? They're going to look at you with horror and say, no. It's like, okay, but you've just been given the power to look at Joe's phone. And it's like, well, that's different. It's like, how? Oh, yes. Yeah, because we'll be doing it for good. It's like, because there's never been a bad cop in the history of mankind. This is just not something that happens. If you have checks and balances because you need checks to stop bad actors, and not even bad actors. The police are not the most technically savvy people. They are not necessarily going to sit there and think about this carefully. It's about having somebody say, actually, you shouldn't be looking at that person's information. Won't cross their mind while they're doing an investigation because they'll feel it's important, but they could be potentially bringing things into somebody's life that they shouldn't have access to at all. And worse, that could then end up in a court transcript or some other thing. And then you're going to have these lawyers fighting over, well, that shouldn't be in evidence and that shouldn't be in evidence.
Yeah.
By that point, it exists and is in a semi-public domain. So no, I don't think they should have access. I think it's a slippery slope. I think it's a slope that I don't think politicians would want if you started to really tell them. Unfortunately, I think most politicians probably don't realize what they've just agreed to if they're or planning to agree to. I find this often happens when you start talking to at least at local level to politicians here, but they sort of talk about these grandiose things. We've had a couple of big sort of cyber-based laws passed in the UK, and when you start talking to them about like the Child Safety Act, and you like, do you understand this? Do you really understand what you've just agreed to and said to? It's like, oh yeah, it's this is like, no, it's got nothing to do with that. What you've actually tried to do is something incredibly stupid. And technically, there's bits in the UK legislation at the moment that is not just stupid; it's not possible. It cannot be done. In terms of some of the data requests and requirements that people are meant to do, and it's just like, it's just not possible to do this. And I'm like, well, it will be in the future. It's like, you're legislating for things that might exist in the future.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we leave that to the future?
Mm-hmm. And my problem with it all is a couple things. First of all, there are bad cops out there, number one. So what happens when bad cop and his ex-wife or his separated wife are estranged, and he wants to abuse her and track her, and all he does is pick up the phone to the cell phone carrier and say, give me the geodata because I can. So you have that problem. And then the slippery slope I don't like is, once we cross that line, once we pass this law, what's to say, we've already given cell phone access, so let's add banking access to that as well. Then let's add stock market access. And let's add health data to that. You see where I'm going? It's a slippery slope that I don't really want to be in. And just to clarify, we're not talking about when you leave the country and you go from Canada to the US or Canada to UK, the border patrols don't look at your cell phone. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about data that has been transmitted to your cell phone, right? There's a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And even physically, there's a difference between being, if you're in custody and the police say, oh, we need to look at your phone, you have been arrested, we kind of have access, and you say no, and they go, okay, well, we're going to go and get a court order. It's certainly in the UK, they've got various powers and within various legal acts, and so they can go, okay, we're going to go and get a court order for this. Now that court order is basically the equivalent of going to a judge and saying, hi, we'd like to go on a fishing trip, and the judge is going to say no unless there's a reason. But if you're in custody, then they'll probably go, oh yeah, you've arrested him. That seems a reasonable thing. And he's saying no. All right, here's a court order, and you can come back. But even then, when they come back and say, here's a court order, if you turn around and go, no, then they are sort of between a rock and a hard place. They can say, okay, we're going to keep you here until you say yes, but there are like limitations. There's time. There comes a point where that time's out, and they'll have to charge you or not charge you. They can seize the phone and go, okay, well, now I've got a seized phone. What do I do with it? And certainly in the UK, our police forces are woefully understaffed in terms of technical people. So the response is, well, I'll send that to a high-tech crime person, and the high-tech crime person will put it in a big pile with all the other phones. And so you, as the person who was arrested, probably won't have your phone for a very long time. But the chance of it actually being them breaking into it and using it is really low. And while we have some really weird and terrible privacy laws, actually, when it comes to like mobile phone transmission, what the police can't do is go to the cell company and say, "Oi, give us the data." They can create a warrant and attempt that, and they'll get some very bland data back. We also do quite well when it comes to like encryption bits by default for some of our messaging platforms and the way we work. So it's really an odd place for any, and I think it's the thing is, if you're a government organization or the government, it seems such a weird thing that you'd want to do this, because every politician knows that once they're not in government, they're in the opposition. Yep. What is to stop the next government go, well, maybe we'll just read your messages? Mm-hmm. So if you're the person signing the bill that says, I would quite like to carte blanche to allow anybody to have access to this data. This seems perfectly reasonable. It is going to come around and bite you really quickly.
Oh, I'm sure. And that's what nobody has figured out in all this. And it's funny. And I said at the start of this doesn't include going into another country, because one of the things going on right now is, I don't know how much the international news you've read, but there's these large number of Canadians complaining that when they go into US, they get their cell phones searched. And what I would argue is this has been happening for years. We're just hearing about it more because of the political disaster, and people are pissed off. But I think people's cell phones have been searched for years. I mean, this is not anything abnormal. It's been going on. And
I think
this
the
is
difference is that in the US, at least, the administration is making it a big thing that they're saying it will happen. You have to comply with this, and you will do this, or we will throw you out. Certainly in the UK, it's portrayed. The headlines were all about students going over to the US that you need to be careful about, and when you're going through the border, there was very much the last big story was about how if you have social media, you have to make sure that that's open and public. Your profile is open and public before you arrive, because you're going to be pre-vetted, which leads to all sorts of wonderful things like, well, I deleted my Twitter account.
Yep.
You must leave it open. Really difficult to do when it's deleted. And other such silliness. And I think a lot of this is bound up with this people being both scared that they're doing these sort of trolls, while not simultaneously going, they can't do these sort of trolls on a mass scale. There comes a point where there isn't somebody who's actually looking through your Twitter feed. The reason they want to open it up is because presumably they're going to let Grok analyze it and go, does this person like Nazis? Yes, no. And well, if they say no, that might be a problem in some countries.
But it's one of the things that they're doing. And, I've read this a couple places and knowing a couple police officers, a couple border people. One of the things they look for in the U.S. going in the States, there's some valid things. Are you going into work illegally? And usually they've been tipped off. Are you smuggling something? Usually they've been tipped off. Or third, and it's a big problem, are you one of those ladies who have an unscrupulous job called an escort? And are you going into the States to sell your services? And usually they've been tipped off. So 9 out of 10 times when you get to the border anyway, they usually have a reason to go digging. They're not generally on witch hunts per se.
I mean, I'm assuming that it is the worldwide, that the person sitting on the border is not the most highly paid person.
That's right.
They sit there for very long shifts. They process lots of people. And they probably, the vast majority of them, want a fairly easy life. There will no doubt be an asshole of a border agent at every port you go into, whether it's an airport, in every country. There's always going to be one or two. But the vast majority of them just want the line in front of them to ease off as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no question.
So they aren't going to be trying too hard. But that said, if you have an administration that is putting a lot of stock on, we don't want undesirables, then you will have this scenario where they will be incentivized to find problems and pull people apart, to not literally pull them apart, pull families and separate them out, I meant to say. And that puts it in an awkward place. And if they can abuse the information that you have to give them to get through, to make judgment decisions that they couldn't make for a normal citizen on the other side, in some countries, that's perfectly acceptable. And in other countries, that's like, no, God, no. Our rights should extend to anybody who comes to our soil from the second they step in, not just after they've made it through immigration. And it's an interesting debate that people can have, but it's a hard one to have as well, because you obviously do want to stop certain people from coming into your countries. And pick them up and send them back home at the border. But if you're doing it based on the color of someone's skin, or you're doing it based on someone's religious backgrounds or political views, that's a problem. And the thing is that these laws, like the one in Canada with like you're allowed to, that they're putting through Canada, in a very liberal democracy, it's a liberal democracy now. Liberal democracies have this weird habit of becoming more authoritarian. They sort of go in waves and cycles, and you often find the most authoritarian laws were actually passed in the most liberal part of the democracy cycle, because nobody can see the bad consequences at that point, because everybody's nice and happy. So we're on a really cheerful subject. I'm glad about that. We're going to cheer your listeners up today.
But we're going to get to a better subject. So, I thought the other thing I thought we'd talk about today was you've launched a new course, and we've talked about the course a little bit here. So let's dive in. You're going to start, interestingly, with Module 2. When this comes out, the course will have already been out for 3 days or 4 days. So that's good. Who needs this course and why, first of all, and what's it about?
So, I mean, I would like to say everybody needs this course, because obviously I don't want to increase my sales. No, I do actually think it's a really good course for anybody who's, it's primarily, so it's a WordPress security course. It's aimed at WordPress professionals. And I use that term as loosely as you'd like it to be, if you think it defines you. But it is for people who use WordPress day in, day out. You don't have to be a developer. You don't have to be a system administrator. But you do need to be the sort of person who has to go into the admin area, make changes and have like admin level access. If you're that person, this course has things for you. To get the maximum out of the course, there is some bits towards development. There's some bits about how to configure and set up servers. But the good part of this is you can take the bits that you can implement right now and implement them right now. And the bits that you can't implement right now, they provide a nice background to be able to go to your hosting company and say, well, do you do this, 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 and this? And have confidence in saying things. So one of the sections is on hosting, specifically because I want people to have the confidence to go to a host and start actually probing as to, do they have certain features and certain things?
Yep.
But the course is 9 modules. As you say, I'm starting on module 2, which is all about users. And I'm starting on module 2 because I was a bit worried module 1 was a bit boring. And I didn't want people to start on module 1 and say, oh, this is boring, and not move on, which sounds terrible as I say it out loud. But module 1 is a lot more on introduction to WordPress security, and it talks about things like AVSS and various how to get involved, threat modeling and things like that, which is for me really super interesting and but is also quite geeky. And what I wanted was that actually I wanted to release a module that went, right, we're going to go jump straight in, and you can start making changes and doing things right now. So it's launching on Thursday, the 10th of July. And basically, you're going to get a new module every 2 weeks. So you can sign up from WP Security 101, that's the numbers.com.
And what I would say is WordPress professionals need to pay attention, because I'm going to say this, and you and I have talked about this numerous times, but developers and designers don't necessarily know how to lock down websites, and they don't know how to do it well. They're designers and developers, and they have no clue. And we're even talking simple things like the old, and we've talked about it here, let's just give everybody admin access because we can, and it's easier. And you're laughing, but you know, that's number one. And then it goes on from there. And I don't think just because you're a good designer and you're a good developer, you're actually any good at maintaining or securing your website.
No, and there's a part of me that I absolutely agree. There is a part of me that's like, and what should they be? Because they're good design. Yep. It comes back down to the idea that for many years I would be sort of like, theme designers. Oh my goodness, they can't do anything right. They can't develop anything properly. Oh, what are they doing? And then I had this like epiphany moment of like, oh yeah, because they're designers and we're making them do all
Excuse
this
me.
stuff.
Yep.
You know, we're forcing them to learn how to write PHP code and bits and pieces, right? Shouldn't we make theming better and easier for them, etc.? But there are some parts of security that are everyone's responsibility. And if you are an administrator of a WordPress site, you should understand the basics. And to be honest, probably a little bit more. And if you're selling WordPress in any way, shape, or form, you should know more than just the basics. You should be in a position where you actually can be able to sell with confidence. And by going on courses like this, not only will you be able to sell with confidence, but you'll actually be able to sell security with confidence. Because if you go and pitch for a client, everybody in that pitch is going to tell you that the security is really high priority and that, you know, it's the most important thing. And they'll be like, yeah, we've got bulletproof security. It's like, no, your servers are not bulletproof. I assure you, if I brought a shotgun into a server room, your server dies. So, but being able to actually explain your security procedures, explain what you're doing about security, will give new clients that confidence to go, oh my God, these people know what they're talking about. Let's give them the money, rather than the people over there who said, yeah, we do security. It's great.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. What kind of other modules can people expect?
So we have a whole list. I mean, so users is number 2, information security is number 1. I'm totally not going to the website to remind myself what the other modules are. So we've got, introduction to WordPress security is module 1, and that includes things like introduction to security generally. So like, what is a bad actor? How do bad actors compromise sites? But also talk about things like OWASP top 10 and OWASP ASVS. And as well as more common security myths that I inevitably come across and I have to squash regularly. Module 2, which is being launched on Thursday, is user management, and we cover everything you can think to do with a user, from what they are through to how do you handle temporary users, how do you handle passwords, session management, multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, how do you audit these users, what about if you need to do things like magic links, how do you do that? Module 3 is on updates, and it's literally how do I update WordPress plugins and other things, and what are the pros and cons to the different ways to do it? How can I actually identify a security release, which sounds really simple, but actually being able to understand, is this important? Should I install it? Versus can this wait a day? Is a really hard thing to do in WordPress by default. We also cover a little bit of the stuff related to both the EU and the UK's new Cyber Resilience Act and bills stuff there, that we talk about how you generate your software bill of materials, which is something you should be doing anyway, but you actually legally now have to, or in the UK will have to, because the act's not fully in place yet. Module 4 is on browser security, so cores, security headers, content security policies. Module 5 is all about the server, hardening your servers, setups, and do configuration management. Everything from like SMTP through to how do you manage secrets, how do you secure your API endpoints, and what's in the WordPress config. Module 6, hosting and backups. Backups should have its own module, but I've sort of bundled them together because they do go a bit hand in hand. Module 7 is on monitoring and building SIEMs. That's security information and event management. Module 8 is the best module in the world that I know everybody is super excited and pumped for: compliance.
Yeah.
But we do sort of like talk about, right, how do you get WordPress through compliance? So that's and things like GDPR, Cyber Essentials in the UK, and PCI DSS and ISO 2701. And then the final module 9 is a cop-out because it's literally, let's put everything together. Let's go start from sort of like scratch and build up these things in layers. And it's a lot more, it's a module full of hands-on tutorials. So I am really, as you can probably tell, excited. It's taken a long time. Bear in mind that I've owned this domain for over 6 years. I decided like about a week ago that actually I'm going to also build an LMS system, because the one that I was using, I decided wasn't good enough to do what I needed it to do. So that's been fun. That's my last week has just been, oh yeah, I'll just go and build an LMS. And it was like, oh great. But I'm really happy with where we are. So
Good. What's the cost of the course? Approximately?
so by the time this has come out, I'm afraid you've all missed the early bird sales. But it will be 195 British pounds. So that's what, 250-ish Canadian
US. Yep.
dollars.
Canadian.
And
Yep.
it's not that far off from in the US.
But that money could save you a lot of effort, time, and aggravation down the road. So look at it that way.
Absolutely. And at the end of the whole thing, if you get your way all the way through, you take all the practice quiz. There is an exam at the end, and it's an actual exam. You have it's online, but you will be logged in, and you'll have to go through. If you get through the pass mark, and you submit your coursework bits as well, you get a shiny certificate, which I actually genuinely hope is something that people will be putting on their CVs. Is like, I've done the basic course for this. Obviously, there is a longer term plan to maybe do some more specialized courses afterwards, so that once you've done the basics, you can maybe do one on incident response, for example, i.e. hack sites. But that's down the line. But at the moment, I'm concentrating on just getting this course out and seeing people getting their initial sets of certificates.
That's a good thing. If anything, anybody who takes a course will make them more knowledgeable, which is better in the long run, right? So that's the way of looking at that.
Exactly. And it will reduce down just so, I mean, I really am hoping that and agencies have got on board. But if agencies like, okay, you can if you bring your team on board, they're all now singing from the same hymn sheet. So they're all, they all now have the same sort of base level knowledge. And the more we can disseminate that out, this I'm hoping be one of those courses that just gets recommended as like, this is the basic course that you should be taking. And that everybody who does anything to do with WordPress professionally, I really encourage and would like them to be taking this, because it's the course that should have been there 10, 15 years ago. It's the course that I promised that I would do 10, 15 years ago when there wasn't this course in place. And it's taken me 10, 15 years to get to this point where I was like, actually, I feel confident enough that I can deliver this and deliver it with enough quality that it can be last another 10, 15 years.
No, I agree. And I think it's well done and great for you for doing it. And thank you for that. I think there'll be a lot of people jumping on this. In terms of the course, how long typically will a module take somebody to go through? Just for some timeline, if they do, say the one that's coming out on Thursday.
So the one that's coming out, there is just under 3 hours of video content for that module. There is a bunch of written content alongside of it, but there are recommended labs, which are basically little things to try, especially for the user one. There's quite a few of them, because it's like, okay, you're talking about multi-factor, it's talking about working out your own decision trees. There's a lab on auditing your users and going through that process. So you could speed through this. If you were to speed run the course, you could probably speed run it in 15, 20 hours. But if you were to take your time, do the lab sessions, do the extra, the suggested exercises, the 2 weeks cadence gives you a nice sort of like, in the 2 weeks, you could probably do that module.
Yeah. Good. So check out Tim's course. Bug Tim. I'm sure he'll talk to anybody.
Absolutely.
Right? And spread it around, because we need more courses like this, and we need more people to bring their skills up to current standard, because a lot of people are just kind of let their skills go and not concerned, and I think it's a big problem. Anything else pressing on your mind this week, Tim, or is that about it? Touching on?
Just a really random one, but if you are a system administrator type person, so you manage a server, just go and run your updates. If you have root access, just go and run your updates. There was a quite a nasty little bug to do with sudo
Yeah.
that
Oh
was
yeah.
published earlier, late last week. And we're in an awkward place where it will be affecting quite a lot of hosts and hosting companies, which they'll do their own rollout. But if you're on like an Ubuntu 20 release and similar, there's a good chance that you probably need to do an update. So figure of this as a public service for all guys. Just go run your updates this week.
And yeah, and the other public service around that is if you're a Windows 10 user, you better start thinking about options very quickly because
Oh yes, very very quickly because it's coming up, isn't it?
yeah, and you know the frustration is if you don't have a TPM chip, you can't update, and that's on some perfectly good laptops. So what I would argue is say is you want to run Windows, go get a new machine and think about throwing
Yeah,
Linux on that
though
old
I
machine.
mean there are some workarounds. There are,
Yeah,
and there are some now supported workarounds by Microsoft to get around some of the problems with machines that don't have TPM chips but still are more than capable of running sort of like
yeah,
Windows 11. That said, I personally would they're going, well, if you've got a really good machine and you're willing to learn, Linux systems and Linux desktops today are fantastic unless you've got a particular piece of software that you have to use on Windows. Maybe this is the time to go, actually, I'm fed up with Microsoft doing this to me. I'm fed up with Mac doing this to me. Come join on the dark side of the Linux systems. He says
yep.
running his Mac and off this on a Mac, but I've got a Linux system just there.
So do I. So I'm with you. And there are some options actually for even extended security support that they've put out there. So they know this is going to be a problem. So you can actually pay them for extended support. So that's one thing to check out. Till you make up your mind. Right?
But I mean, if you're a larger corporation, yeah, you're sort of going to get caught out by this. It's seemingly crept up quite quickly from when they announced. I mean, they've announced it years ago,
Yep.
but it seemed to have crept up quite quickly. And it's not going to be like the NT4 and 2000 rollouts where it was like, yeah, you're saying that, but you're going to extend it, aren't you? This
Yep.
actually
Yep.
does feel like they're finite, and they're like, no, we're just not going to. You're going to be
Mhm.
screwed.
I remember when we did the big rollouts in because I was still in the corporate world to Windows 7, and those were big, massive rollouts. And most of the big corporations were a year behind, a year and a half behind, but we were all paying for extended support. So it wasn't as much an issue as an individual user who doesn't want to pay for that support. So didn't matter. So that's your public service announcements for the week. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, Tim, about the course, where did they go again? How'd they get a hold of you? Do you go?
I mean, if you want to get hold of me about the course, then wpsecurity101.com is the best route. But if you just want to get hold of me, you can find me on most social media. I don't really use Twitter except as a broadcast, so I'm not like checking DMs because they're just filled with spam. But you can find me on Blue Sky. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Mastodon. If you're looking for me on Mastodon, myself and my good friend Ross Wintle have our own instance. We're at crikey.social. So you can find me
Okay.
at tnash at crikey.social.
And you're back doing videos on LinkedIn too again, I see.
Yeah, I am. I thought I'd give it another little push. I'm prepping them for going onto YouTube as well. But I like
Yeah.
doing the quick video as long as
So
it's
do I.
quick and it works. But
Yeah.
LinkedIn doesn't like video. People on LinkedIn like video, but it is one of those platforms that sometimes it will just go, no, I refuse to. It doesn't matter how many likes you get. I'm still not going to show it to more than the people in your local network. But it's
Yeah, it's
fine.
so true. Yeah. Thanks, Tim. Have a great day. Enjoy the summer. Enjoy the weather.
Thank you. Speak to you soon.
Bye. This podcast has been brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital marketing concierge to help the business owner put all his pieces together, whether it's email marketing, WordPress security, WordPress design and development, PPC, and more. tech, stunning digital marketing for all your digital marketing needs today. Very special thank you to Tim Nash for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much every day. My mother, Ann Cairns, who's still doing really well and is an inspiration. And of course, Tiz Maroney. And Tiz, I know I've said it, but thank you so much for all the inspiration you give me every day.